All right, JALT folk, welcome. My name is Wade Malcolm, and I'm the Director of Program for JALT, and I'm kind of the lead coordinator for our annual international conference. This year, our conference is coming to you online via Edzilla, and as you can see in the corner of my screen, Reflections and New Perspectives is our conference theme. And one of our plenary speakers, our main stage speakers this year is Baye McNeil. And he is here in Japan, and he'll be zooming in to us from his abode or wherever he zooms in from. So he's going to be one of our main stage plenary speakers. So right now, we're just going to have a little interview, a little talk with Baye about his life, where he comes from, and a little bit about what he's going to talk to us about at the conference. So, first thing, let's just hear from Baye. Baye, why don't you start us off with a little introduction? Tell us about yourself, where you come from, how you came to Japan, and some of the things you're involved with in Japan. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be great. So, originally, I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I came to Japan in 2004. Um, Initially, I lived out in Saitama, and I was teaching there, but I was teaching for Eikaiwa, you know, for Nova. Can I say Nova?
You can say Nova, no problem.
All right, yeah.
I was too. I was a Novite as well.
He's a Nova
Yep.
instructor. But I
Yep.
was a Nova instructor for about 3 years, and I got out of that just in time, just before the disaster came down upon it, and
I do
so I was
remember.
pretty lucky. And I became an ALT, and I've been an ALT since then. What was the other question? Some of the other things I'm into?
Yeah, just some of the other things you're into professionally that you are doing since your time here in Japan.
Um, Currently, in addition to teaching, I'm also a writer for a couple of publications here. I'm a columnist, monthly columnist for Japan Times. I'm also a regular contributor to Toyo Keizai, which is a Japanese publication. And um, my first book, Hi, My Name is Loco and I'm a Racist, is in the process of being translated into Japanese, and that's soon to be released, probably before Christmas or by Christmas. So really excited about that. I'm also working on an audio book of that same book, and that all the pre-production is done, all the recording is done. It's just in the editing process, so that also may be available by Christmas. So
Oh wow,
it's looking like a
a lot
big
of good Christmas
Christmas.
presents. A lot of good Christmas
Yeah.
presents for people.
You got some good stuff coming up. So yeah, that's been keeping me pretty busy.
So before we get into specifics about your talk, I am just curious about. So how did you get into writing? In particular, like you said, your first book, "Hi, my name is Loco. I'm a racist." How did you get into these topics of writing?
When I first began writing in Japan, I began as a blogger, and I started a blog back in 2008, primarily to just vent about some of the things that were bothering me, because I didn't see, at that time blogging was pretty big, and especially here in the Japan blogosphere, there were quite a number of blogs here, that dealt with different things, temples and traveling and onsens and all kinds of things. But I didn't see one addressing the types of issues that were, plaguing me and plaguing, friends of mine. So I started a blog to try to address some of these. And the name of the blog was Loco in Yokohama. And because of the fact that there weren't any other bloggers really addressing things like race issues and, well, my nemesis was the empty seat. And this is, if you live here in Japan, you might notice that sometimes, especially if you're a conspicuous non-Japanese person, that sometimes when you're in a Japanese space, like a train or a bus or a cafe, the seats around you, the seat beside you might remain empty, and you might attribute whatever, cause, the cause du jour to the reason for the empty seat, but it's a persistent thing, and most conspicuous non-Japanese have experienced this, but no one was addressing it. So I started addressing it, and because of that, I think because there was very few people, if any, addressing it, my blog kind of took off because a lot of people were dealing with these types of issues here. And the books kind of came out of the blog. The first book was a lot of it was taken from the blog. And because when I was blogging, even though they tell you certain rules, like, oh, if you're a blogger, most people have a short attention span, so you should write really short posts. That wasn't my style. I was writing like, 1,500, 2,000 word posts. So if you were following my blog, you were a reader. So it was easy to make a transition from people who were reading my blog to people who were purchasing and reading and enjoying thankfully enjoying my books. That was an easy transition. So that's how I got into that. And the journalism part, the books were so successful, it attracted editors of newspapers and stuff like that. And that opened those doors. I was never into journalism until it came knocking. And then that's how I got into writing for papers and magazines and stuff.
Wow, great. Okay, wow. Yeah, I guess that's just like, do what you see around you, and things will come from that.
Yeah. I mean, people say write what you know. That's what I did, and it worked out.
Yeah. Was an interesting. I was at a talk, and one of the people at the talk, the main person at the talk, he said something to that effect. Basically, like, if you're looking for a research project, don't like bust your brain over looking for research projects. Like research projects all around you. Just think about what's in front of you, what's bothering you, and see if you can make that into a research project. It doesn't always work out, but there's probably so many different things. Just go for that and see what you can get out of it.
And chances are, there's an audience for it.
Yeah. Chances are there's an audience for it. You're not the only one who's probably feeling this way. So, yeah. All right, great. So transitioning on, actually gonna jump into a little bit about your talk, because we just want to kind of get a little bit of an overview about your talk. And I have it right here up on my screen, so I don't mess anything up. It's right here. I've been looking at it and thinking about it. From activist to ALT to activist abroad, and that's going to be your main plenary talk on a Saturday from 4:45 to 5:45. And I just wanted to kind of get into that specifically. That it says from activist to ALT. So before you came to Japan, you describe yourself as an activist.
Oh yeah. I mean, not well, ever since I was a child. I mean, I will get into this in my presentation, but my mother was an activist, and she raised her children to be people who are concerned about or feel empowered to contribute to, or to to bring about change, positive change in their environment. So I always felt that I could make a difference. And that was because that came straight from my mother. She didn't want to raise us to be people who were victims. We wanted to raise us to be people who felt like they could be part of the solution.
Okay. And from that, so then you come to Japan and you get involved in Nova, specifically Nova, working from there. How did you meld your activism roots into the Japanese medium of eikaiwa and teaching English? Did you see overlap there, or was that something you had to kind of separate yourself from?
Yeah, I was actually living two lives here. So one was totally activism free, and one wasn't. And because in the schools, I kind of, well, as a teacher here, particularly in the public schools, not so much with Nova, but
Mm.
working as an ALT, I think, honestly, I think maybe 25 to 30% of your responsibility here is teaching English. The rest of it, I think of myself as an ambassador to the outside world for the children here. And I took that more seriously than I took the English, honestly, because I felt like that was going to have more of an impact on the society than whatever English they might garner and use later in life, here.
Did you find it, how did you find being able to overlap or connect your activist roots with your teaching roots, teaching English side? Did they overlap or do you have to separate them? Did you find any issues with that?
Yeah, there were issues with that because as a teacher here, you're going to run into certain problematic issues about the culture and about living here and whatnot, interacting and building relationships with teachers and whatnot. So some of my activism and a lot of my blogging came from incidents that I had to navigate in the schools here. And some of the activism grew out of that as well, but for the most part, I kept my two worlds fairly separate. I thought of myself by day as a teacher / ambassador to the outside world, and in outside of the school, I was, writing, and not necessarily just activism, but just writing and sharing my thoughts and entertaining people through my writing. This is something I've always done and what I continue to do through my blog here. So yeah, I mean, the activism, of course, the activism grew out of some of the things that I was experiencing outside the school as well, like the MDC and, some of the things that are, the problematic aspects in the media here in particular, like blackface and these kind of things that you have to, that you run into when you live here in Japan, that you won't run into too often, in the US, but here, you will. And I think as a foreigner here, as a non-Japanese person here, you have to learn to adjust your sensibilities and adjust your sensitivity level for this new environment. But at the same time, you need to be able to address certain issues that are going to have a negative impact on your quality of life here. Especially if you plan to stay any significant time. So I had to find I had to decide which issues to address. Like, they say, pick your battles. I had to pick my battles.
Yeah.
Which things am I going to address and which things I'm just going to say, not shogunai, but this is the tax you have to pay as a non-Japanese. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things you benefit from. There's so many great things about Japan. There's a tax, there's a social tax, and which taxes am I prepared to pay, and which ones am I going to, refuse to pay?
Yeah, I totally understand. I think, yeah, I totally understand. As obviously as a black man to a black man, I probably definitely understand what you're saying in this sense, in that there are some things where when you realize, when you talk to enough Japanese people, especially as a language teacher, where our job is to engage with people and you're talking to so many people, you start to realize that, at least I know from my perspective, I start to realize, wow, you're not really doing that out of like malice or out of, you just don't know. You think like, in order to play a black person character, you have to dress up like a black person, which means painting your face and your skin and going out that way. Like that's what you have to do in order to do this thing. And they treat it more as like, well, if you were gonna do, if you were gonna play like a, this person, you would dress up like that person and you would put on the wig and you would do this. Like, wouldn't you do that? Like, what's the difference? They really treat it like that, but they don't see the, you know, for them, it's not their history, so they don't see the, all the back, and you're kind of like, how much are you gonna, how much are you gonna make hay over certain things, when, you
Well,
gotta pick your
yeah,
battles or something like that.
exactly,
You gotta pick your
exactly. You
battles.
you have you have to choose
Yeah.
your battles, because some of them are, just I wouldn't say they're not worth fighting, but
Mm.
they're the wrong battles.
Yeah.
You pick they're the wrong
Yeah.
battles to
Yeah.
engage yourself with here in Japan.
Yeah.
Uh, but blackface isn't one of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I think that well, I could talk about. I'm going to be talking about that in the
Well, you're gonna be talking
presentation.
about, yeah, you're gonna be talking about more of that later. So let's not
Oh
get
yeah,
into too much
let's
of that.
not go there
We
just
won't
yet.
we won't spoil, no spoilers. No
No
spoilers.
spoilers.
But something actually, even drilling down a little bit more specifically, what I wanted to ask you also is, you said the role of ambassador, and I know, um, in JALT, and I think the language teaching community in general, there is sort of this, I wouldn't say an issue, but there is this balance of, we are foreigners, and there are many foreigners who obviously teach English, but there are more who are Japanese teachers of English, and we see ourselves as ambassadors of this language and even culture to a certain degree. And when you drill down into the minority side of it, obviously we are a minority within a minority. So I do wonder how you see yourself as an ambassador, maybe for not like Black men, but maybe Black people in general in Japan, or do you think about it like that, or do you like, or is it
I
just
try,
something?
I try not to.
Mhm.
But I know that that's the way I'm framed quite often here, and not just here, but in most places, most spaces. But I try not to think of it. I try not to think of myself as an ambassador to Blackness,
Mhm.
as more of a. But when I said that, then when I used that word ambassador, I was thinking more of an ambassador to the outside world.
Yeah.
And I think that many of the issues that conspicuous non-Japanese are going to run into here in Japan, or stem from the fact that the people here have certain notions about us, certain preconceptions and presumptions about us. And as an ambassador here, I feel that as a part of our responsibilities as ambassadors here is to address these, to reduce the ignorance, that many people have about, non-Japanese people. And yeah, I think that we're well suited to do that. Being here, being conscious of that being I mean, I think that while English and the ability to communicate verbally is going to help build bridges, I think if the students learn that this person's humanity has equal value to my own,
Mhm.
that's a more valuable lesson than the articles and friggin' conjunctions and stuff like that. I would rather teach them that. If I
Mhm.
can get that point across, I feel like my work is done here.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of times when I'm writing, that's where I'm going. I'm trying to
Uh-huh.
teach that, not
Mhm.
English. I'm
Mhm.
trying to get those basic principles across, because I think the education system here kind of undermines some of those principles. It kind of reinforces the notion that we are us and they are them.
Mhm.
And when you have that, when that's the paradigm that you have to deal with on a daily basis, you're going to run into these issues where people see you as not being able to do this and incapable of embracing this aspect of our culture. These kind of
Yeah.
obstacles that you're going to run into on a regular basis of primarily stem from the fact that the people believe that you are a different type of being
Mhm.
from
Yeah.
and I think as an ambassador, I think it's more important that we address that than fix their grammar.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, that's that's one of the points I want to follow up on is, so how do you take some of these principles that you're talking about in your profile and yourself, and how do you transfer them into the actual classroom as an ALT? I just want people to understand, you you may not go deep into this in your talk, but I think here would be a great time to kind of, you know, talk about, this direction.
Um, well, one of the best things about working as a ALT is that we get to make our own lessons sometimes, and we get to use material, you know, of a cultural nature at times. Because a lot of times, for example, when you're working with some of the material that's provided by the Board of Education or whatever area you're working in, some of this material is contains some biases and some problematic ideas. I'm trying to be nice here, but
Yeah.
some things that I don't feel very comfortable, teaching the kids. So, I prefer to make my own lessons. And I think part of being an ambassador, like I was saying earlier, is that you have to go against the grain. You have to go against some of the presumptions that the students are walking around with. Like, for example, they associate certain holidays with non-Japanese, like Christmas and these kind of things. So, teachers will often come to me and say, well, we want you to do a Christmas lesson. And I'm like, I don't celebrate Christmas. I'm not a Christian, and I never got into the Santa Claus myth. That was never my thing. From childhood, I've been celebrating Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa? What is Kwanzaa? So this becomes an opportunity across cultural education opportunity where I can integrate, some of the grammar that I'm trying to get across to students with this presumption crushing, lesson about this holiday they never heard of before. So I will use that as a chance to talk about Kwanzaa. And I've done that. I've been doing that every year for, since I've been an ALT. I will have a Kwanzaa lesson, teaching, all grades about the origin of Kwanzaa and how it's practiced by African Americans in various countries, Canada, England, America.
Oh, great. That's excellent. Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are probably even groups of teachers out there who probably might now call you like, oh, wow, I think I want that lesson.
Oh yeah, I got the lesson plan. If
Wow, great.
They want to check it out.
Okay. It's actually getting close to our time here, and that's a really great place to that's a really great place to kind of wrap up and kind of bring to a summary. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where we can find your stuff? I see in the background you got some books and things like that. Where can we find your stuff, and maybe just reiterate one more time what's on the tap in the future for Baye McNeil?
Well, I'm the author of 2 books. How My Name is Local and I'm a Racist was my first book, and the second was called Local in Yokohama. They're both memoirs. The first is about my experiences with various race issues in the US as well as here in Japan. And the second book is primarily about some of my experiences, more comical and lighthearted than the first book, about some of my experiences as an ALT here in Japan. So if you really want to get into how it is working as the ALT here in Japan, the second book would be right up your alley. So as I mentioned earlier, the first book, it was pretty successful, and as a result, the Japanese publisher is translating it into Japanese. That's going to be released around Christmas time, as well as the audiobook of the first book. So those are both on the way. So if you're into listening to your books instead of reading them, that's going to be available soon.
Oh, great. Okay. So yeah, so we're looking forward to having you on the main stage of JALT this year, or main screen, I guess, main screen, because it's going to be online. It's going to be online. So
Right.
yeah. So thanks for joining us. Bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
All right.